The nation we know today as Germany has over a 1,000 year history going back to the year 800. It was in that year that Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as Roman Emperor, a title that hadn't been in use for over 300 years. This is a painting of Charlemagne. That name translates as Charles the Great, who united Europe for the first time since Rome fell to barbarians in the year 476. And he was crowned emperor on Christmas Day, December 25th. This area in green shows the region that was granted to Charlemagne by the Pope. And Rome was south of this new empire, and the region in green extended from northern Italy all the way to the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. But it was the city of Aachen where Charlemagne came from, near the border with France. During his reign, Charlemagne defeated many enemies. He defeated the Vikings and swept them out of his empire. He defeated the Goths and the Visigoths, who had conquered Rome in 476. And then he turned his attention on the Muslim invaders from the south. And fortunately for European history, he pushed them all the way back into Spain. Otherwise, many Europeans would be speaking Arabic today. If we zoom in on this territory, we can see where the city of Aachen is located. For centuries, this region had been called Lorraine. There were two kingdoms of Lorraine, Upper and Lower. Upper is the higher elevation and the mountainous region. Lower Lorraine, lower elevation, in the modern day countries of Belgium and the Netherlands. This is a gold-plated bust of Charlemagne, which can be found in the city of Aachen at the Imperial Chapel. It was from this city that Charlemagne launched his various attacks against the Vikings, the Goths, the Muslims. It was his assignment from the Pope to defend Christendom and to drive out the pagans and the heathens. And in his lifetime, he was never defeated. This photograph is a current photo of the Imperial Chapel at Aachen in Lorraine. Construction was begun in the year 801 AD, the year after he was made emperor, and it was completed just 4 years later in 805. That makes it one of the oldest cathedrals in Europe. Charlemagne is buried there, and you can still view his coffin as a tourist inside of this chapel. This is the throne room, which is located inside the chapel, which is inside the palace of Aachen. And it's from here that Charlemagne ruled the Holy Roman Empire until his death in 814. Returning to this map of the original Holy Roman Empire, we see that this area extended across half of Europe. It included the modern day countries of France, Germany, northern Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Poland. Of course, they did not have those names in the year 800. And if we look at a current map and then overlay the borders of the original Holy Roman Empire, there's a few other countries worth noting, the Czech Republic, modern day Croatia, and there's this island west of Italy in the Mediterranean, the island of Corsica. I just wanted to point that out because that is the island where Napoleon was born. So this empire extended across half of Europe. It existed continuously for over 8 centuries. In the year 962, descendants of Charlemagne rose to become the most powerful monarchy in Europe, more powerful than France, Italy, uh, Eastern Europe. And this lasted until the 12th century, during the period of the cathedral building craze. And it was marked by a harmonious cooperation, more or less, between the Roman Holy Roman Emperor and the various vassal states. A vassal would be a state that swears allegiance to the king and pays taxes to the king or to the emperor, and in return they're given protection by the emperor's army. Well, between the 12th century or 1200 AD to 1800 AD, this monarchy was the first among equals. All monarchs were Catholic throughout Europe, and all of them paid honor to the Pope, but none more so than the Holy Roman Emperor. But then it all changed when Napoleon came into power after the French Revolution of 1788. And he changed the landscape of the Holy Roman Empire. He went to war against Francis II, and he won a famous battle. Francis, the Holy Roman Emperor, abdicated the throne, and Napoleon proclaimed himself ruler of the former Holy Roman Empire. He did not retain that name, and he didn't retain the title, that is Napoleon. He created a confederation of states. He called it the Confederation of the Rhine, since they almost all bordered the Rhine River. They were all German-speaking regions or states, and they were technically loyal to him, but they were not part of France. For various reasons, Napoleon decided not to expand France into this area, primarily because of the language barrier. Of this territory that Napoleon had conquered, Bavaria was by far the largest region of the former Holy Roman Empire. It was predominantly Catholic, like France, and Napoleon had a good friend and loyal general, Maximilian, who was from that area, and he appointed Maximilian to be the first king of Bavaria and gave it special autonomy. Bavaria would be ruled by Maximilian, who did not have to take orders from Napoleon. As it's written in the history books, there are only three things you need to know about the Holy Roman Empire. It was neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. These are the words of Voltaire, the famous French philosopher. Instead, by the year 1800, when Napoleon conquered the area, it was a loose coalition. These were German-speaking regions who were often at war with each other. And as they broke up into smaller and smaller regions, their loyalty to the emperor was less and less. This is the region that Napoleon created. He called it the Rhine de Beaune, again referring to the region of the Rhine River and the countries that were connected to it. It was established in the year 1806, but in that period Austria remained independent. Technically, it was never conquered by Napoleon. In fact, Austria would form an alliance with other nations, including Russia, to attempt to defeat Napoleon. Bavaria was under the rule of Maximilian as king of Bavaria, and it was semi-independent. But in between the north and the south were these 21 squabbling countries with names that I cannot pronounce. And the fate of these countries in an era of industrialization everyone could realize that they would no longer exist unless they unified. Between this 7-year period from 1806 to 1813, the year when Napoleon conquered the Holy Roman Empire and the year when he left, he created a new kind of army, an army of tax collectors, whose job it was to take an inventory of his new vassals. And these bureaucrats were very efficient at their job. They realized right away that there was an obstacle to tax collection because so many people had the same name, the same first name and the same last name. Last names were usually based on their occupation or the village that they came from, but that was not sufficient for these bureaucrats. So they made it their mission to assign new last names to the merchant class. They didn't care so much about the poor class or those who didn't pay taxes. So to be given a new last name meant that you were an income producer and someone who was expected to pay taxes. And this was needed for better record keeping and also to punish those who did not pay last year's taxes. Returning to the Oxford Dictionary of Family Names, it is the source of the idea that Engelhaupt comes from a house name. It literally means angel's head, and it was taken from a sign depicting an angel's head, which we will get to shortly. So sometime between 1806 and 1813, our great-grandfather Caspar's parents were probably given the name Engelhaupt, meaning angel head. Well, there's a difficulty with language translation. If you go to Google Translate and you punch in the word Engel, it will translate into English as angel. But if you put in the word Haupt in German, it translates as mane, not as head. For example, a Hauptmann would be a captain, a head man, or the boss man. And if you invert the noun and the adjective, put in Hauptengel, it still translates as a main angel. If you were to start with the English word head, it translates into German as Kopf, not as Haupt. Likewise, doing the reverse, an Engelskopf would be angel head in English, not Engelhaupt, but Engelskopf translates as angel head. Well, the problem with us English speakers trying to sort out how the name originated is owing to the fact that we speak English and not French. You have to think of this from the perspective of a French bureaucrat. In French, there's this word ho. It's pronounced H-O. The T at the end is silent, and it means high or on high. In German, ho means hawk. Hawk translates as high in English, and it translates as ho in French. Similarly, the word head in English would translate as Kopf as the primary word usage in German. Germans, like English, have the same word for different things, but Haupt would be a secondary or even a tertiary translation of head, whereas if you put in the English word peak, Haupt is the primary way to translate peak. And I've had German speakers tell me that technically Engelhaupt would be the peak of the head or the crown of the head, the top of the head, and not angel head. But the prevailing theory is that these French bureaucrats who had a partial understanding of German word usage preferred the word Haupt to Kopf, owing to the similarity of the French word ho with Haupt, and so they invented a new name, an Engelhaupt. Although that's not how they would have pronounced it. Now, Images of angel heads were a very popular motif in Bavaria during this period. Here's an etching. This is a painting on a wooden panel of an angel head. These carved wooden angel heads were very popular. You might find them placed above a door. Here's a very similar looking carving, perhaps from the same studio. This was placed on the front of the door. These are 18th century carvings. Another perhaps 17th century wood carving that you would find in Bavaria or Germany, along with stained glass images, wood carvings, angel heads are found throughout Germany and Bavaria. So a good theory is that Casper's parents, who were assigned a new last name, were innkeepers and had an angel head placed above the entrance to their inn, and so the French tax collectors gave them that last name. The cherub, by the way, is a symbol of virtue, especially the virtue of justice, and to a traveler it would signal equal treatment to anyone who is passing through, regardless of where they came from. So travelers, especially Frenchmen, might find it appealing to stay at an Engelhaupt inn. Returning to this idea of distinguishing one family from another, the angel head became a surname sometime between 1806 and 1813, and the pronunciation would have been Engelhaupt, which is French linguistic fashion. The T is silent in French. For example, the word bouquet, the T is silent. Gourmet, ballet, and of course, Chevrolet. And so, even though I may have mispronounced the name during this presentation, the proper pronunciation from 1806 to 1813 would have been Engelhaupt. Over the course of those 7 years, many families across Germany and Bavaria who were never related to each other suddenly overnight found themselves with the same last name, Engelhaupt.